Fall. It means there's a crisp chill in the air. It's time to gather wood for the season's first fire, and the leaves are piling up outside. But along the coast of South Carolina, fall is kind of like summer, only cooler. Fires are simply for roasting oysters, and the only raking you might do is in a sand trap of one of our many challenging golf courses. Tap now to discover the joys of fall on the coast of South Carolina, or visit fallinsc.com.
Some coffee's fast, but not fresh. Some coffee's fresh, but only after a long wait. Speedway coffee is made fresh at the push of a button, hot or iced, so you can have fresh coffee your way, right away. Get 2 times the points when you buy any size hot or iced coffee drink with Speedy Rewards.
Looking at some emails and news items this morning, and I don't even know where to begin. I guess I have to begin with the Kyle Rittenhouse interview last night, where you basically saw this young man who didn't seem the least bit like what he has been portrayed as in almost every part of media, on the internet and television, on the radio. And so that was kind of stunning. He was like a cross between smarter than I thought he was and more naive sounding than I thought anybody should be. But I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad that he had a chance to speak up for himself. I was stunned to find out that Lynn Wood and Jack Pierce, his first 2 attorneys, literally kept him in jail after they'd raised $1 million and could have bailed him out for an extra 2 months so they could keep raising money. I never liked Lynn Wood. Everybody was just rah, rah, rah Lynn Wood because of the Atlanta city bomber, which, of course, was a great case that he resolved. But then, when he got involved with Donald Trump and all of the stuff about the election, I saw him as pretty self-serving again, and now this just proves it. I mean, imagine using a kid to raise money, and then the attorneys told him to go do an interview with the Washington Post. It's like, I don't know, kind of like, if you're a Roman soldier and you throw a Christian to the lions, you did it knowing you were doing it, right? So that was kind of interesting. I learned some things, and and I'm still confused about some others. I'll tell you what I'm confused about. I'm confused about this, the need to not show any real photographs of the Waukesha murderer, because that's what he is. He is the Waukesha mass murderer who drove his red SUV into a parade of people who were just, totally undeserving. I mean, 52-year-old, 82-year-old, these are the people that he killed. Just out there, grannies marching, dancing grannies marching in a parade, and a bunch of kids got run over. 40 people in the hospital, 6 people in critical condition, many of them children, okay? And for the first, 24 hours, we had a name almost immediately. Or at least I had. I was getting emails almost immediately and text messages about who had done this. And the majority of the media, the mainstream media, whatever you want to call it, they didn't publicize any name. And by the time they came out with a photograph late in the day, it doesn't even look like the person whose photograph is out there today. It didn't look like the person who I just witnessed on his TikTok page. It's disgusting. And it's disgusting that he had tried to run over, actually he had run over an ex, and he was out on $1,000 bail. I'm still trying to figure that one out. I go into the jails and visit people all the time. I know people who are there for far less than actually intentionally running somebody over, and what I would call a homicide attempt, attempted murder. What would you call it, right? You didn't think it was just going to startle her. You were trying to kill her. And you get out on $1,000 bail? I know people who, did some property damage and have $10,000 bonds in Broward County. I mean, It makes no sense to me at all, except then I realize this is what it's all about with the DAs and these, woke prosecutors and the George Soros-backed law and order, let's not have any. That's their motto. Which brings me to some others. And by the way, the guy is a total creep. He's a long history of arrests. He has run down other people. Tried to run into a police cruiser, ran over the girlfriend in the gas station. And this is like his weapon of choice. He did have a knife at the domestic abuse that he was at prior to running everybody over in the parade, but he likes using his vehicle as a weapon of mass destruction, and he destroyed lives. And so if anybody out there thinks he was fleeing the domestic, no. He intentionally, and that's what the police chief said, he intentionally ran over those people in the parade, broke through barriers to do it, okay? How is that not terrorism? Somebody explain that to me. That is not terrorism, but parents going to a school board meeting and demanding accountability on the part of the school board, that is terrorism. This world is messed up. This country's got some messed up ideas out there. And people like you and me, we got to fight back. It's enough already. I'm tired of woke. I'm tired of, giving a pass to every criminal. Saying illegal immigration isn't illegal and it isn't immigration. What is it? Just a moving around, a shifting of chess pieces. It's disgusting. It really is, all of it. And then I read this article on Law Enforcement Today that more than half of the New York Police Department wishes they never became cops in the first place in a city that is now defunding police, okay? Excuse me, I'm just getting more and more upset. Plus, I gulped down this ginger beer, which has straight up ginger, and I'm choking to death. But New York Police Department cops say far left politics absolutely destroying New York City. The survey is a sobering snapshot of how the men and women who protect and serve feel in an era of the violent riots following the death of George Floyd, the defund the police movement, bail reform laws that keep violent offenders on the streets instead of locked up, and legislative measures that put the burden of liability on officers while emboldening criminals. My retirement is next month. I can't wait to run out of here. Dan said, he only would provide his first name, said that the job has hit a rock bottom and that he has even steered his son away from the calling that was once proudly passed on in his family from generation to generation. According to the survey, most who took the survey think things will only get worse, with 79% of the 6,000 respondents polled in March saying they don't think the city will be safe 2 years from now. The city is absolutely not safe at all. Bail reform, criminals being released, everyone knows what's going on. Not only did 56% of cops say they wouldn't put on the badge if they had it to do all over again, but a majority feel the public disrespects them, distrusts them. There is no other profession that is scrutinized as much as they are. And the far left-leaning politics destroyed New York City's finest. 80% of the officers, detectives, sergeants, lieutenants, and captains now fear aggressively fighting crime because of the threat of criminal liability, being sued or being unfairly disciplined. That's right, because they passed these reforms in March that put an end to qualified immunity for cops, which was the only thing that protected them from civil lawsuits. 73% of police stated the public does not have a good relationship with the NYPD. A adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, Joseph Giacalone, and a former NYPD sergeant, said, "This doesn't look good for Mayor-elect Adams. Not only is he inheriting a lot of bad legislature from the city council of Albany, it sounds like he's getting an apathetic police department. I don't blame cops. DAs that don't prosecute, feckless politicians, removal of enforcement, quality of life crimes. What can they do? Damned if you do and damned if you don't." And the don't part sounds a lot less troublesome. You'll get into a lot less trouble anyway. You can't even imagine. This is my hometown. No matter what, it's my hometown. I don't like it. I don't want to go back there. But it's a shame one of the greatest cities ever on earth, now past the breaking point. And de Blasio on his way out the door as mayor, the outgoing city council, they're still piling on policies that punish police and erode public safety. Cops are looking to get out as soon as they can. That's why you saw all these New York police that came down to Lakeland. You know, they're now the entire Lakeland police force, okay? It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. But it's not just New York. It's every city where Democrats have been in control for quite some time. And that's not just like, oh, you know, I'm just saying that, but it's, you know, it's my opinion. No, it's not my opinion. It's the truth. And one of the sickest things is what's going on in the city where my grandsons live, San Francisco. Because there, it's now, just ever so much fun to, put masks on a whole bunch of your buddies and then block off the entrance and the roads into, shopping malls in Walnut Creek or in front of the Neiman Marcus in downtown San Francisco, and then just loot it while the police stand by. They can't do anything, even if they wanted to, because they had that amendment that passed that says any theft under $950 is nothing. It's a slap on the wrist, a misdemeanor. No, I can't prosecute that. So they just go in mass now. Instead of one guy going in and stealing $500 worth of stuff, making it whatever, grand larceny. Now each individual can steal $900. If you come in a group, you can walk out with $20,000 pretty quick, pretty easy, and none of you are prosecutable. I'm not making this up. This is what's going on in these cities that were once. San Francisco is or was once considered the most beautiful city in America. That, when people say that to me, I'm going to be having dinner with my sister-in-law and brother-in-law on Thanksgiving, and she loves San Francisco. Of course, she's talking about the San Francisco of years ago, and the most beautiful city and everything in San Francisco is so wonderful and so cool. She hasn't been there in a while. San Francisco is like, they have little apps for your phone so that you don't step in human excrement. The phone gives you a signal. You're about to step in human dung. You got junkies lying on the street getting off. You got homeless people getting real aggressive with you. You got Walgreens refuses. They've closed out, 5, 6 stores? More, I think now. Now it's up to 9. So if my grandson needs amoxicillin, good luck. There's no Walgreens. You'll just have to wait until the morning and then go to Safeway or whatever supermarkets are out there. I can't even remember their names. This is what's happening in these major cities that were once incredibly beautiful. Let's face it. I may be a native New Yorker and therefore slightly prejudiced, but it was the greatest city. We had the greatest public school education in the country. Now it's like in the toilet. Now we had the greatest police in the country. They didn't even carry guns. They had nightsticks, and we respected them. Maybe they had guns. I don't even remember. You very seldom heard about a police officer needing to pull a gun. Police officer came at you with a baton or just looked at you. You ran the other direction. Okay? We respected them. A worst nightmare that could happen to anybody when I was growing up was if a police officer dragged you up in front of your mother and father and said, I caught him on the corner smoking a cigarette. The punishment would be raining down on you. Now, you just smash in the windows of a police cruiser, take a shot at a police officer. Cut billions of dollars in funding, okay? All over this nation. You got to be shaking your head. So while they're looting and pillaging, while the border is being penetrated by drug dealers and human smugglers and everything else, you're defunding the only thing that stands between most people and death, really. Criminality leading right up until death. And now you want to talk about taking away my gun? Good grief. You've got to be kidding. Anyway, don't forget that coming up right after me is the one and only Dan Bongino, and then Ben Shapiro comes on at 4 o'clock, and the WPTV News will be here at 6 o'clock. And da-da-da-da-da. On and on it goes until Jen and Bill come back around about 5:30 tomorrow morning from what I got. And don't forget that you can get breaking news alerts and exclusive web features just by following us on Facebook. Like us today at 850 WFTL. I'll be right back. So let's defund the police. I don't know about the rest of you, but I was looking at the scenes because now there are multiple videotapes, and I strongly suggest you don't watch too many of them of the scene in Waukesha at that parade, because it's just really disheartening to see, people getting hit. But who is this guy, Darrell Brooks? Who is the guy who drove his vehicle into a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, killing at least 5 and injuring dozens of people? Well, let me tell you who he is. He's a career criminal, a vicious criminal who never should have been on the street. Already, Milwaukee County's DA is backtracking, saying that his own office, we didn't make a proper bail recommendation during his latest encounter with the criminal justice system. Oh my gosh, I wonder how that could have happened, given that all of these urban prosecutors are selected by George Soros. But another question should be asked. Was he inspired to commit mass homicide by all of this nonsense relating to race that's constantly being forced down everybody's throat? Specifically by BLM? I know your local, radio hosts, your local newspapers are not going to touch that question. But thank God for guys like Andy Ngo, who's been investigating this. Because Darrell Edward Brooks, the man who was taken into custody by police at the Christmas parade mass casualty event, had posted a quote in a now deactivated Facebook account in 2016 saying, "Run them over, keep traffic flowing, and don't slow down for any of these idiots. #BLM." The man who was taken into custody. That's right. He hated former President Donald Trump, made a whole rap song about it. He also expressed all kinds of anti-Semitic black nationalist views. #BLM. And if those screenshots that Andy Ngo found are authentic, and we have no reason to believe that they're not, the connection between this Darrell Brooks and the Black Lives Matter movement, and therefore the Democratic Party, is pretty clear. And it should raise the alarm level for everybody out there. Because being anti-Semitic isn't unusual these days for liberals. He had a post that said Hitler knew who the real Jews were. And then he posted a cartoon, whatever, some kind of graphic, which literally is the core of the BLM, therefore the Democrat Party ideology. And, it's one of these, the police treat black people differently. White privilege 101, racial profiling. Okay. How about the fact that maybe racial profiling is actually based on statistical analysis that says the odds are that if you go into a crime scene in a predominantly black neighborhood, you're probably going to end up arresting a black person. Just saying. White privilege 101. And this is the kind of nonsense that has led people like this demented Darrell Brooks to think nothing about plowing his car into dozens of, just average working class, young, old men, women, people. This is the big climax for his criminal career, right? Let me drive my vehicle into a Christmas parade and, kill, wound, something like 45 people, including a number of children. People like who write for the New York Times and the Washington Post, they've been pumping up and spewing this kind of hatred for years. It's their promotion of hate against everything about America, against conservatives, against white people, against government, against police. It has literally just rendered us impotent. And it has tragic results, as you can see. It's so interesting how everything kind of lines up. I told you that I've been reading, I don't know what to call it. I've been listening on my Audible app to some books, and I had listened to Clarence Thomas's autobiography, which was fascinating, My Grandfather's Son, incredible book. And then I decided, I was talking about Walter Williams with my husband the other day, and Shelby Steele and, Thomas Sowell. It's so amazing to me. Ben Carson, these conservative, brilliant men are scorned by the likes of, Joy Reid and Cornel West, which is crazy to me. And they're glamorized. The worst people are glamorized. So I'm listening to Walter Williams' book called White Guilt. Man, talk about hitting the nail right on the head. He predicts, this is a couple of years ago, he predicts woke culture. He uses the term woke, cancel culture. He uses the word cancel. This was before you and I ever heard those terms. Well, we heard them, but in a very different context. But he had his ear to the pulse of what was going on in the community. And he was on a drive through California at some point when he decided to speak into, I guess, his tape recording and write this book, White Guilt. And it's just stunning to me how white guilt is nothing more than turning around people's real feelings about, the races to make it worse. Really, that's the only way he and I can describe it. In other words, it's not bad enough that this country ever allowed slavery to exist. Now we have to, wear a hair shirt for the rest of our lives and, take whips and chains to ourselves. And somehow that's going to elevate people whose ancestors suffered. We're doing a fine job, right? I can see how this is working. Because, see, when I was growing up, black families were intact. That's right. Husbands and wives and children living in family units, right? And then before I knew it, by the time I was in my teens and then in my 20s and 30s, that didn't exist anymore. You had very few middle-class black families that stayed together. You had a lot of single moms. You had a lot of, terms like baby mama, baby daddy. Those all came into vogue. They weren't, when I was growing up, if somebody had a baby out of wedlock, it was like, shh, send her away. When she comes back, say it's grandma's baby. Now it's like, hey, I got 27 kids. I read this all the time. Guys bragging about the number of children that they've, left behind. And this is the results of white guilt. Just so you know, this is not the way, it's just not the way a normal person of any race wants to see their society, their group degenerate. But, you pound your chest and you say, well, we'll just have more affirmative action and we'll make sure that, that we even the playing field. We never even the playing field, all right? Because sending kids to Harvard who still can't read at a 10th grade level isn't doing them a favor. It teaches them more failure. It teaches them more hatred for the powers that have kept them virtually enslaved, only in a much different way. Enslaved to government, being on a government plantation. And that's what white guilt has led us to. Hasn't helped anybody. Not black people, not white people. When you see a young person like I see my producer who works 2 jobs, who has taken care of herself for her entire life, she's the exception to the rule, okay? She's not the rule. And it doesn't matter that she's a woman. It's not the rule for men either. I can't believe how many people I know in their 30s and 40s that have come home to live with their moms and dads. Get up and get out. Go earn your own living. What the heck? How do we become a nation that accepts that? Oh, well, you can't afford to buy and people can't get a job. There's nothing but signs. Yeah, I need employees. Help wanted. Everywhere I go. Literally, everywhere I go. Signs saying like, instantly become a manager at Wendy's. No working up the ladder, if you can add, 24 cents and $2, You can be a manager at Wendy's. They're dying to hire people. Everywhere I go, help wanted, help wanted, help wanted. But there's, an entire underclass that's not working and has no intention of working, especially now that they know, well, we got this child tax credit, and then we're going to have free child care, and we're going to have, this and that. Goodness. And God forbid you don't give an illegal immigrant, $400,000 for the, unmitigated gall of separating them from their children at the border when they snuck in with them. I'd like some of the moms that I visit on a daily basis in these prisons for their families to get $400,000 since they're being separated. Just saying. At least they're American citizens. Golly. Do I sound a little worked up? I think I am. Yeah. And nobody, what kills me is the double standard. Because can anybody out there doubt that if this Darrell Brooks had been Kyle Rittenhouse, had looked like Kyle Rittenhouse, and he had driven into a mostly liberal parade in some, East Coast or West Coast city, this guy would be already on death row. Remember what happened in Charlottesville years ago when a guy drove his car into the rear of a car that was pushed into a third car that went into a crowd of liberals and killed one? They're still lying about that. This was 5 times worse, but nobody's talking about it. Or only a handful of actual journalists like Andy Ngo who would even look into the question. We've fallen pretty far down, huh? But we can get back up. Just wake up. All right, and don't forget that we have tickets to see Bill O'Reilly on his the history tour is what it's called, with the former president, Donald Trump, on December 11th. You can win a chance to win your way in. Just go to 850wftl.com, register, and you could win a pair of tickets to see Bill O'Reilly with President Donald Trump on the history tour, live in Sunrise at the FLA Live Arena on December 11th. Go to the website now, and while you're there, download the app so you can listen to my podcasts. No news like bad news, right? I'm reading this morning in the newspaper online that and the federal government just reached a settlement with the families of victims of the shooting at the Florida high school by the gunman at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. They sued the FBI over failure to act on warnings that the gunman was planning an attack. Now, you and I were all living through this nightmare at the time, and we did know that a call had been made to an FBI office about the shooter and about how there was something up with the shooter and about how they were fearful that the shooter would actually, end up doing something terrible to himself or to someone else. And, of course, that's what happened. So there was a lawsuit by multiplicity of the parents. And lo and behold, the U.S. Justice Department filed a notice saying the parties are working to finalize additional details before submission for final approval by the appropriate Department of Justice official. While the exact terms of the settlement were not disclosed, a person familiar with the negotiations who spoke on the condition of anonymity, God, I hate that, because all the details were not finalized, said the agreement was for about $127.5 million, distributed among the families of victims from the Stoneman Douglas shooting. Now, let me just say this, because I think that the parents have every right to hold, the FBI accountable for not following through on that call that they received, apparently from a person who knew the shooter quite well. He might even have been living with this family at the time. But let me ask you a question. Are we talking about the same FBI that just broke into the parent who had the audacity to speak up at a school board meeting? That FBI? Are we talking about the FBI that refused to investigate Hillary Clinton's email server and the missing emails? That FBI? Are we talking about the same FBI that broke down the door to Roger Stone's house in the middle of the night, scaring his wife to death? And is that the FBI that we're talking about? Because if it is, they're going to be nothing but lawsuits against the FBI. This is a department run amok. So whoever, I think it was the lead counsel for the 40 families that sued the Justice Department was Christina Infante from Pothurst and Orsic, who was the lead counsel. And so when somebody, I think, asked her, well, does this give closure to the families who suffered the way they did? She said, no, I don't think closure is the right word. It's just turning the page. And we're the ones that have to pick up the tab, because it's not the FBI, it's not the Department of Justice that's going to pay this. It's the American taxpayer. And like I said, these families deserve to have their negligence suits, paid. If they're willing to settle for, $125 million, I can't blame them. But let me ask you, because I think this is a legitimate question. Why would you not indemnify a police officer in New York City if I have to indemnify the Department of Justice? I have to be held accountable, even though I have nothing to do with the FBI, even though I had nothing to do with the January 6th, whatever you want to call it. I had nothing to do with, the Hillary Clinton emails. I had nothing to do with Anthony Weiner's laptop. I'm not one of the people he was emailing. I have nothing to do with any of this, but I got to pay everybody because the FBI functions under this cloak that says the American taxpayer will be held accountable for anything that they do. But a police officer in the line of duty will now be individually accountable. The city of New York is no longer going to indemnify them. If anybody can make sense of this stuff, send me an email and explain it, because I'm pretty bright, I'm a high IQ person, well educated. I do a lot of reading, and that makes no sense to me at all. Not that I don't think the parents should receive, but why does the FBI get immunity, but a police officer doesn't? Aren't the FBI essentially just a Federal Bureau of Police Officers? They're indemnified. Whoever that FBI agent was who did not act on the information that they were given, him or her, they're not liable, right? They're indemnified. The FBI and the Department of Justice, and therefore you, the taxpayer, we're the ones that have to pay the piper. And like I said, it's not that I don't think the piper should get paid. I'm just really curious as to why they can make sense of that, but they don't want to indemnify a police officer who, in the line of duty, might inadvertently or accidentally cost someone their life. And most of the time, that's not the case. Actually, most of the time, the only time you see police officers use that kind of force is when they feel threatened, or when they see someone threatening another human being. But hey, I don't want to confuse everybody with too much facts today. I just want to keep, bringing up the things that trouble me. And then if it wasn't enough, right, if I didn't have enough on my mind, I see an article in the American Thinker about how it is entirely possible that the Capitol Police didn't only murder Ashley Babbitt, that it is entirely possible that even though the person named Roseanne Boyland, the D.C. coroner, attributed her death to a drug overdose, we now have seen footage showing a Capitol Police officer brutally beating a woman in the Capitol tunnel who looks an awful lot like Roseanne Boyland. And there's a guy languishing in jail, a former Marine with a career as a volunteer search and rescuer, who has, was witnessed inside and near the entrance of the tunnel on the Capitol's Lower West Side. His arrest, he says, came about because he waded into that area to rescue people that the Capitol Police were brutally beating, shooting with rubber bullets and tear gas, and targeting with explosive devices. And last week, his attorney, Joseph McBride, got 3 hours of video showing events in and around the tunnel and filed a motion to dismiss the charges against him. And if what he says is true, and he's not anonymous, we know who he is, his run-in with the police, this former Marine, came when he became aware that the people in and near the tunnel were desperately trying to run away from the Capitol Police. People were screaming, getting crushed. There was a pile of human beings being stacked on top of each other at the tunnel entrance. People are trapped, and there is nowhere to go. One officer wearing a white shirt and a badge numbered 1359 was focused on a red-shirted woman in a MAGA hat. And this is the statement that Nichols made. Then, for reasons that no fair-minded or decent human being will ever understand, the officer wearing the white shirt turns his attention to the woman and begins to pulverize her. The weapon this officer appears to be using is a collapsible stick, which is designed to break windows in emergency situations. The stick is neither designed nor to be used against another human being. And for the next several minutes, between 4 p.m. and around 4:15 p.m., the officer in the white shirt relentlessly beats the woman. Hits her on the head with his baton 5 times in 7 seconds, then sprays her directly in the eyes with mace, then uses his baton to hit another person with a mask on. They're still being maced and hit by white shirt and ledge officer. Blood is visibly coming out of the woman's head and can be seen on the white hoodie. Then the white shirt officer and other officers are randomly assaulting people for no apparent reason. White shirt makes his way to the front of the crowd again and targets a woman who's attempting to escape. He spears and pokes the woman with his baton about the head, neck, and face so as to inflict the maximum amount of pain. And then he beats the woman with his baton, striking her 8 times in 6 seconds. Then he punches the woman in the face with his left hand, landing 5 punches in 5 seconds with all his might. Another officer joins in and starts beating the woman in the head with his baton, landing 12 strikes in 7 seconds. And if you pause the video there, you'll see the welts on the woman's face along with a disturbing look of helplessness. The officers then push the woman around the tunnel. The woman briefly collapses. The white shirt follows the woman to the front of the tunnel and beats her with his baton as she's falling. The woman is taken to the back of the tunnel and is never seen again. 10 minutes later, Roseanne Boylan's body was found just outside the tunnel. I'm just saying. Videotape that has been denied to the defendants in the January 6th case reveals a very different story than the one we've been told. Gee, where is that thing? Oh, that's right. The videotape in the Kyle Rittenhouse case also revealed a very different story than we have been told. You know, they wanted body cameras on everyone, right? Be careful what you ask for. All right, let me take my final break. When we come back, I will wrap today's show up. Stay right where you are. We definitely don't believe most of the media. There is no question in my mind that they lie and that they get kind of locked into their lie. And once they're in it, it's like a self-licking ice cream cone. It just keeps itself alive. And they get every other outlet to follow along with them. It's like, I am the Pied Piper, follow me. If I hear one more person, and this I've heard numerous times since the verdict on Friday, talking about how this was a racist judgment in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and then say, and anybody who tries to tell you there's nothing racist because he was white and the people he killed was white, it was racist anyway. Well, okay, what am I missing here? He went to protect the city, not from BLM, but from guys like Rosenblum, who had no business being in Kenosha. How about the state lines that they crossed? Every Antifa weirdo that goes from Portland to Louisiana, they go wherever the next protest is scheduled with their mace and their bricks and everything else. And I never hear a word about well, geez, maybe we should, try to combat these Antifa guys that keep crossing state lines. No, you never hear that. Only Kyle Rittenhouse is the only person who ever crossed the state line, even though those two communities, as he said in his interview last night, the nearest police station to the one in Kenosha is the one in his hometown across the state line. Wow. Bet you didn't think that. No, because they wouldn't tell you that. It's amazing to me. It really is. And an interesting person who said, you ought to be thinking about your own safety, because nobody's looking out for you anymore. Not the prosecutors, not the DAs, not the police. Not because they don't want to. The police would like to, but they can't. Their hands are tied. And you just wait and see. The Parkland families have now reached a settlement. A friend of ours is on a thread saying, well, guess what? They should go after Broward County. They should go after the school administration. The Broward County schools. They should go after Robert Runcie. And he's probably right. As long as nobody's going to be indemnified, right? If police officers can't get indemnified, then I'll be darned if I'm going to let Robert Runcie or anybody else get indemnified. So we'll see where this all ends, or if it all ends, if it ever ends. But it's a pretty challenging time to try and keep your wits about you. And it's time to admit that I'm sick and tired of the Liz Cheneys and all of these other people that just really, I don't know why they're in the political life, the AOCs. They're unapologetic about their desire to get the camera on them, even if they don't have any principles. I thank you for your time this time. Until next time, my plan is to be back here at noon tomorrow, if it be His will. Any delays is coming. What lies behind us and what lies ahead of us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. So wherever you are, just be yourself. Everybody else is taken. And may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
Some coffee's fast, but not fresh. Some coffee's fresh, but only after a long wait. Speedway coffee is made fresh at the push of a button, hot or iced, so you can have fresh coffee your way, right away. Find a store near you at speedway.com/locations.
This McDonald's 30-second radio. Sausage McMuffin with egg and warm chicken McGriddles. ISKI code MCLY 207321RH.
To those who step up to work the sunrise shift, power through the double shifts, or conquer the overnighters, McDonald's wants to serve you a tasty breakfast at a great price. Enjoy a savory sausage McMuffin with egg, a warm chicken McGriddles, or a flaky McChicken biscuit for just $2 each. Swing by McDonald's today. No matter the shift, we're happy to serve you. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.